Hello and welcome to a CBK gaming video. Join us as we discuss and review Warhammer Quest Cursed City. So what is Warhammer Quest Cursed City? More importantly, why should you buy it if you can? Why does it belong in your collection? Is it a good game? Does it innovate? Does it build on what has already been before? Or does it just continue on in the same vein as previous games? So first of all, let's look at the components. This is a Warhammer product, a Games Workshop product. The miniatures are going to be phenomenal, and they really are. They have a uniqueness to them in this game. They're very spiky. You will be stabbing yourself every time you try to pick them up. They are very fiddly, and in fact some of them are very difficult to put together. They are the push together, so you don't need to glue them. We have, but you don't need to glue them to put them together. Do they capture, though, the essence of old Warhammer? And I would argue no, they don't. They are moving with the times. They are continuing in the vein of Age of Sigmar. That's good. The zombies in this collection are fantastic, with the graves on their back, but they've still got loads of strange spiky bits. the vampires, and they're really well realised, and they're very fluid. You look at their movement in the figure and they really are nice, hanging on to parts of the scenery. I really like those miniatures.
Yeah, they're some of my favourite.
Yeah, they really are. The skeletons I like, with their sort of semi-destroyed armour and spears that have rusted away.
You get the feel of decay coming from them, yeah.
But again, there's an overwhelming amount of spiky. The bats, they're good. They're nice figures. They're nothing special. The rats, they're nice, nothing special. But some of these other miniatures are really well realised, but they've gone really over the top with spiky and fiddliness.
Yeah.
Now that's fantastic for people that are Games Workshop aficionados. They play all the various games. They want an army they put together for skirmishing in Age of Sigmar or any of the other glut of games you've got out there. For somebody who's just coming in and joining this amazing hobby, these may be a little bit off-putting, especially to put together and not to break, as some of these figures are just so fiddly to put together, especially with my sausage fingers.
And they are quite robust, but they feel very delicate.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I pick one up to move it, I'm frightened that I'm going to break the tip of a spear off or a leg or something. And the problem is with this game, the figures move so much. It is a fluid game.
Mm-hmm.
And the figures are constantly moving around the board, and every time I go to move, I'm worried I'm going to break something.
Yes.
Because they feel brittle. They're not, but they feel it.
Know exactly what you mean. Especially the strange object. I really like the hanged man. You'll see an image on the screen now of the various strange objects. I really like these. I think there's something that's been missing in other games from Games Workshop. I think just having those little bits of scenery really add to a game. So I'm really pleased to see those. I didn't like cutting them out and trying not to break the rope or the legs, but they look really good.
They do.
We haven't painted them just haven't had the time to do that. We'll show you some images of some of our friends painting. These miniatures really look amazing when they are finished. But from my perspective, especially with the characters, they're just not old school Warhammer. We have a lack of Citadel miniature poses. I don't know, and that's just because it harkens back to when I was a lad and we used to collect the miniatures and do the war game, Warhammer Fantasy more than 40k, and something just really is very homely, very nostalgic about seeing the old miniatures, or the old style, that style that's very reminiscent of the old world. And I'm really looking forward to the fact they're bringing back the old world, and I'd like to see them do some more board games in that vein. But phenomenal. I mean, my favourite miniature, I love Warhammer Wood Elves, and the elf miniature in the pose, loosing an arrow with the horns and everything. I really like that miniature. It's a really good, you can see movement in the miniature. They capture that so well. So yeah, there are some miniatures I love. There are some miniatures it's not I don't like, it's that they're not nostalgic to me. And that's a good thing. It shows that they're moving forward, that they're progressing their IP. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
The rest of the components, so the card, again, Warhammer, fantastic artwork, fantastic print quality. There's no lifting away at the edges like some games are. They're really well done, really thick card, fantastic quality, nothing to fault there. Do, however, have some faults on the cards that are used for the items, the monsters, the discoveries, the crises. They're very bland. I never thought I'd say this about a Warhammer product. Warhammer, to me, is fantastic visuals, amazing artwork. They have some of the best artists, and you look at some of their artwork. I would love some of the, certainly the black and white sketches on my wall at home. These, you've got some of that captured on the characters and the monsters, where they've got the painted figures. But where you draw the monsters, they're plain black. Now that's easy to read.
It is, but they're clean. That's how I see it. It comes across as very clean. And when you're moving around the board, around the tiles, the graphics on that, it's a dark story, and you've got dark streets that you're going through, and around that you've got the cards that you've drawn that are fresh and white and clean cards, and it just
clinical.
The aesthetics just don't quite blend in. And when you've got one card next to the board that's a dark street, and then you've got this white card, it just needs
yellowing.
Or even just a faint greying background picture. It's not going to distract from the black text. That's going to be still readable, but just having a perfectly white background, it just doesn't quite blend for me.
Comes across that the game was rushed. Now that may not be the case, but they've put so much thought to the theme in the miniatures and the artwork on the boards. It's really, really good. Really stands out. The rule book, really well done. Then you get these cards, and it's a bit disappointing. And it doesn't feel to the quality of a normal Warhammer product like Blackstone Fortress or Silver Tower or Space Hulk. It just feels off. And that's a real shame, and actually a bit of a letdown. Does it take away from the overall game and the mechanics? Well, no. We'll just go into mechanics in a minute. The other components, the dice, it's a Warhammer style game. If you've played Silver Tower, if you've played Blackstone Fortress, you know what you're going to do. You're going to roll dice, you're going to put them on your character sheet. Wounds will take away from the dice you've got. You've got Destiny dice, or whatever they're called on this occasion. But this game also has specific dice to the game, and you have the 12-sided red dice, which has got a bigger chance of hitting and more criticals. You've got the 8-sided dice. You've got the 6-sided dice, which has less hits or successes on it. Yeah, it's okay. Works. Similar to how they do it in Descent. Nothing new, nothing innovative. Warhammer's always going to be a dice game. Could they have done something different? Yes. There's so many different options. They could have gone with a role-playing style, percentile to hit, D20. They've opted for this, that's fine. But that's the components. The gameplay, the mechanics, why you want this game. This might be where I'm going to lose people, so hold in there till the end, please. But this game disappointed me. And it's an average game to me, and that really upsets me. It upsets me because I expect more from Games Workshop. Perhaps that's just, I've grown away from these games. We've played loads of other games where there's better mechanics, therefore I prefer those style of games. Maybe that's it. But if you played Silver Tower, this is just a reskinning of Silver Tower with a few little tweaks here and there. If you've played Blackstone Fortress, it's the same game with a few tweaks here or there. It was difficult to get hold of. That's by the by. And it just felt there was a lot more hype around this game when actually it didn't deserve it. There are plenty of games out there like that. The gameplay, you sacrifice dice to move, you use dice to attack, depending on the score on the dice, depends on the style of attack you can perform. Some can be ranged, some can be close up, some can be dual, which is both. It just never seems to progress the gameplay, the mechanics. I would have liked to have seen a different engine. I'd like to have seen a complete overhaul in the way that they do things. And I think it's there.
Yeah, I felt I was playing Silver Tower with a different background story.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Which, to me, I mean, I enjoy playing Silver Tower, but that was one of the first games that we'd played together. And so I sort of enjoyed it more for that. And so coming to this was just, well, I'm just getting that game out that we played years ago. I'm getting the same game out with a new story to play. There was nothing new about it. But if you enjoy Silver Tower, if you enjoy Blackstone Fortress, it's like putting on a nice fitted pair of gloves. You know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
If that's what you enjoy, you can go with it. But yeah, there wasn't anything of, oh, this is new, haven't seen this in a game before.
No, I mean, I like the day and night cycle, so the monsters can become stronger depending on how much time has passed. There are different sorts of story and adventures. You've got ones where you can explore and you turn over the tiles and it sort of draws a random map. You've got ones where you have to try and lower the fear. You've got some single ones where you go after one of the main monsters, and that's hard. You have to explore to find their lair, then you have to find them, and obviously they have some special abilities which really hamper your game. But I think if you've got the right combination of characters, some of the games can be easier. Certainly with the dwarf, when you're playing with the dwarf, that seems to make things, certainly searching and getting rid of the strange objects, much easier. We haven't played with all the characters. We've been playing campaign, and yeah, I really enjoy the elf character. I've always been drawn to those sort of characters. I always like playing the rogue or the archer. So, how did you find the actual mechanics with the characters? Did you enjoy that as much as you did with Silver Tower?
Yes.
And the XP.
Yeah.
So to explain, you get experience points on your third experience points, you go up a level. There's different levels depending on whether what trait you have. So whether you're an executioner, whether you're a blade, depends on, or stalwart, I think is one. Lawmaster's one of them. They have different abilities that help you and progress the game, but it also makes the monsters harder.
I did enjoy that, and I like it when a campaign actually gives you something back. It's not just progressing into the next story. Your character changes. What I would have liked was maybe a tree that you can follow. So it's, you've leveled up. Do you want this trait or this one? And I get to personalise the character how I want, rather than you're now this level. Here's your new ability.
Yes.
I like having that. I can play it this way this time, and then if we come back, I enjoy playing that character. I want to play it again, but let's go down this route with the abilities that you get as you level up. It keeps it fresher. Whereas now, every time I play the dwarf, I know that when I get to this level, it's going to be that ability, then that one, then that one. It's going to be the same every time. So I'd be reluctant to play him again in a new campaign.
Yeah, the replayability
the variety bit is a bit too hampered. But otherwise, yeah, I enjoyed it. I do like having that. Have I rolled sort of high enough dice to be able to do these abilities and this action? Which can get frustrating if you rolled all twos.
Yeah.
And yeah, but that's part of the game, and I don't mind that.
I think the replayability isn't necessarily in the characters, but is in the various crises that you can have, which can be random. There are some random elements, certainly within the quest book. I don't think it would give it as much longevity as you have, say, in Tainted Grail, Folklore, which are my go-to games for this style of gameplay.
In a campaign, I like to be able to structure the character how I want with different options. This is... You can play this as a campaign, but the characters don't really change. The campaign just takes you through the story.
Yes.
It's... Yeah. I prefer a bit more character interaction and creation with campaigns.
I think you're right. Variation.
If it was, yeah. Otherwise, I mean, Zombicide isn't a campaign game, but you do all the different missions, but you can pick a different character each time because it doesn't matter. That, I think, would go better with this. That would get me rotating through the different characters that you could play, because it would be, ooh, we're going on a hunt this time for the boss. I'm going to take this character and see how they play. Whereas because it's more designed for campaign, working your way through, building the levels up to be strong enough to meet the boss, you stick with one character, but then you don't get much leeway with what you can do with the character. It's just, here's your next trait to help you kill the boss.
I sort of wish that they would mix in a bit of Warhammer Fantasy roleplay to this, or the Age of Sigmar one. Perhaps link up with Cubicle 7, who do an amazing 4th edition Warhammer Fantasy roleplay, and the Age of Sigmar role-playing game. Two very, very good role-playing games. It just feels that there's more story to be had here. There's more to be had here. Perhaps even include some ability for somebody to GM this and make it into a game that you can build your own stories around. You are limited by the number of boards that you've got.
There's still 20 something. There's about 24 boards. I counted them up. So there's and they're double-sided.
Yeah.
So there is still quite a lot of variety. But to make it big enough to move around, you need to use a lot of the boards.
But it's also
make a decent size.
You are stuck in the Cursed City, so you're always going to have that style. So I have no problem with that. And there's some amazing bits and pieces and pictures where people have built at the actual Cursed City and been playing it. Yeah. Some people have done some fantastic things. There is some other disappointing parts around the gameplay. As you spawn monsters, you might have 3 rats on the table. You might have another 3 rats appear on another part of the table. That's fine. And when you're on those little numbers, you can have a slightly different coloured blood rat leading each group. Or if it's the skeletons, you can have a banner with a different colour banner. What happens when you have 6 of the rats and you've got them all on the table? or 4 and there's a couple still left over from another group. You can't tell which group they belong to, especially when everything's starting to move towards you.
If they all merge onto the same tile, how do you know when you've killed off one group and therefore can deal with what you need to do when you've killed a group of monsters? There's no way of telling, and it's such a simple fix. The game just needs to be supplied with little coloured discs that bases clip into. So when you spawn them, get 3 red ones. That's your red group. That's it.
And we've seen that work.
But it doesn't. Yeah.
Village Attack, Zombicide, a number of other games, Conan. The one thing I would say is this is a carryover. Same mistake made in Blackstone Fortress. And that's a bit disappointing as well.
Yeah. Especially when we came across this problem 10 minutes into the first game and we were already losing track of which enemy group, which figures were in. And it happened every single game. Every game.
Maybe
you
we
find
were
that
unlucky.
you get multiple groups out. But trying to keep track of them, because you can't even say, well, that group goes first, that group goes second, because initiative changes every round. So you can't even say that's the first group, because the next time they could be moving first. And then you lose track of which group's which when they've moved around, and it just amazes me it got through test play without that coming up as an issue to be fixed.
I don't think that people have seen it as an issue. And probably because they have painted miniatures, they have a way of remembering what those are. I mean, we were splitting some of the gameplay over multiple days, and perhaps that was an issue. I don't know, but it just feels that there was something which they could have done better. And when we're reviewing games, we need to address those things.
I mean, if you've got years of experience of playing board games and you've painted them so that you recognise each one, great. But if this is one of your first games, if you're new to the hobby, I would struggle. And I mean, we've been playing for years. I've been playing for years, but I was struggling to keep track of which group was which then forces me to have to take the time to paint them all before I'm ready. It's something that to me would be a simple fix, and it just hasn't been done.
So I think the other item that we need to address is availability of this game. It sold out in a matter of seconds, I think. I remember trying to get hold of it the first time it came about. We were lucky enough to find it on the second pass, but a lot of places had really started to price gouge. You can still get this. I think there's a couple of places seen it. Somebody walked into a small local game store and found it, which was fantastic. Really good for them. There were a lot of people selling them on eBay for quite a lot of extra money. That again, bit of a disappointment. Certainly seeing it on, I think Zatu had it, and within the space of 3 days had gone up quite considerably. And there's a lot of rumours going on whether there's going to be any more games, whether there's going to be any more expansions made for it. Be disappointed if there weren't any more expansions. They certainly did for Blackstone Fortress. And you need to add to some of these sort of games. You need something to keep them alive, keep them as living games. Can I suggest to somebody that they should buy this game? Why would I do that? So if you do see this game and you can get it for a suitable price, the recommended retail price, would I suggest you get this over, say, Folklore? No, I wouldn't. And it really upsets me to say that. I think Folklore offers you a lot more for your money. I think you get a better story. I think you get a better experience. But if you were a collector of Warhammer games, if you liked Silver Tower or Blackstone Fortress, I would suggest that you may enjoy it, but I would look at some other games just to see, and that's where I would suggest something like Perdition's Mouth or Folklore. Folklore, the base game, is almost half. You can get it for under half what you will pay for this game. And without miniatures, it must be said, that's with standees. And I think if you enjoy games like this and you haven't played Folklore, that's where I would look. That's what I would look to buy. And I just, hand on heart, I cannot recommend this game. It may work as a entry, a gateway into campaign games. And why is that? Well, it's simple, it's easy, it's got beautiful miniatures which you could probably use in other games, and it may give you a thirst to look for other games like Gloomhaven. It may lead you to Perdition's Mouth, it may lead you to Tainted Grail. It could put you down that rabbit hole of campaign games. But at the price point and the difficulty of getting hold of this, I just can't recommend it. I really can't.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it has been an enjoyable game. There have been games that I've played that we've played the minimum just to get the review done, and I know that I never want to play that game again.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't. This I'm happy to play. It's not one that I'm going to ask to get down off the shelf, but if someone says, "Can we give that one a go?" I will happily get it down and play it. For me, it's a game of buts. Everything I like about it, there's also a but. So I'm sort of on the fence. I do enjoy it, but I have issues with it at the same time, and therefore there are other games that I would play before this.
If this was the 80s or the 90s, it's a damn good game.
Yeah.
Stuck in its time, unfortunately, and I think it needs Games Workshop. You need to innovate more. You need to build on your rule set, build on this amazing world that you've set. One of the things I found with Age of Sigmar, as much as as I've said earlier, I am a massive fan of the old world. Absolutely love the old world. Been brought up with the role-playing game and the skirmish game. But Age of Sigmar intrigues me. The lore intrigues me, which is why I bought the role-playing game from Cubicle 7, because I want to know more about the lore. So reading this, these games are a fantastic opportunity. If you're going down the Age of Sigmar warren or rabbit hole, use that opportunity to throw more lore at us. And there is some here. We could do so much more. We could have this as a role-playing game in a box, in the same way that Folklore is, in the same way that I would argue Tainted Grail is. There is more that they could have drawn out here, and the missed opportunity is what upsets me, because it's Warhammer, and I love Warhammer and Games Workshop. So, can we recommend it? If you're a fan of Games Workshop Warhammer and you're looking for something to go alongside Silver Tower, Blackstone Fortress, you don't mind a game that's basically been reskinned with a slightly different storyline, yes, we can recommend it to you. If you're looking for a cooperative board game set in a grim, dark world, no, I would argue look at Folklore. You're going to be spending a lot less money. You'd be able to get Folklore and Dark Tales, and I would argue probably Fall of the Spire for the same price. You'll be able to pick this up for, and you'll have hundreds of hours of game content. If you want something in a grim, dark world that's coming soon, I would argue have a look at Oathsworn. That's got some amazing miniatures, bigger miniatures, with some beautifully realised maps, that's heavily inspired by Warhammer Old World. If you want some mad Finnish gameplay, I would be looking at Perdition's Mouth. Beautiful miniatures, are very different, very, very dark, really well done, and good fun.
If you want the dungeon crawler version of it, then Dark Light Memento Mori.
Fantastic call out. A really good game. And of course you've got the Board Game Geek #1 Gloomhaven, which we'll be bringing a review out to shortly. Yes, again, a lot more content, a world that isn't realised very well. I think there's a lot more lore and things you could get into there. Again, has a similar disappointment to Cursed City for me, but I think I'd still recommend it over Cursed City, unfortunately. So, thank you for watching. Hopefully we haven't sent too many people away, because I know it can be very divisive, having a disappointing view of a game. But we have to be honest with ourselves, honest with you guys. Hopefully you didn't find it too disappointing, this review. Thank you for watching. We look forward to bringing you more content. The next one will most likely be a review of Gloomhaven. If you've got some ideas on games you'd like us to look at, or even some suggestions that how we can improve on some of the games we play, so home rules, different ideas on gameplay, because I know we made some comments about the Pirates Republic, and somebody said about some different rules, different ways of playing it, so we're going to try that out. Folklore, again, we've said about Folklore, there's some rules that we slightly amend to give it a different feel, only to enhance the gameplay. So if anybody's got any ideas on games that we've reviewed that you'd like to say, well, actually, have you tried looking at these different rules, or Board Game Geek, have you looked at some of these suggestions? So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.
Bye.